Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. Hope you're all having a great start of the last day of the work week. This morning we are going to do a couple of quick set reviews. I mentioned it last night on the video that we'd probably do our morning's videos will just be set reviews, and probably won't be a whole lot of them because I don't have a whole lot of small sets because I don't want to take up a lot of your time and do a 200 card set. So at any rate, this set is from, I believe it's 1994. Yeah, it's from Press Pass 1994. And it was called Press Pass Prospects of Racing 94. So we'll start with card number 1. It's only a 5-card set, so this one won't take any time at all. This is Chuck Bown. Chuck was a Busch Series champion back in 1990, so it's kind of strange that nearly 5 years later they consider him a prospect. And by this time his dominant run in the Busch Series had started to fade a little bit, and he actually moved up to the Cup Series in 94 driving for Bobby Allison, which he did score his first career pole at Bristol. I was in attendance for that. That was kind of a fun day. Very unlikely pole sitter, but he ended up crashing out about midway in the race. Bobby's team was underfunded. Chuck would later have a head injury at Pocono that would sideline him for the rest of the season, and his career never really regained a lot of steam. He did try to come back to the Busch Series driving for this same team, the Hensley Motorsports team. They just couldn't rekindle the magic. And he just kind of faded into, I don't want to say obscurity, because he worked with MRN and a few of the networks doing just a couple of pieces, but he's kept a pretty quiet life since he's retired, I believe in the late 90s, early 2000s. Card number 2 is Ward Burton. This would have been in 1993 when he was driving in the Busch Series for A.G. Dillard Motorsports. You see the Hoosier tire patch, J. Chisholm boots. I don't think he had J. Chisholm boots as a sponsor in the Cup Series, but Hoosier Tire did follow them into the Cup Series in 94. He did have some good runs in Cup in this car. He did become he would later become a Daytona 500 winner and a Southern 500 winner, and would get caught up in that Toyota controversy when they come into NASCAR. Actually, his team would. He was already gone from the team at that time, but pretty much the 2002 Daytona 500 was the peak of the mountain for Ward, and then after that his career just started slowly descending after that. Ward does have a wildlife foundation that he works with in Virginia about conservation and so forth, and Ward is seen at the tracks a lot with his son Jeb, who races in the Xfinity and Truck Series frequently. Ricky Craven, we talked about him in the top 5 of 2005 set. He would have been driving for J&J Racing during this time period, 1992, 1993, and 94. He did start his own team in the Busch Series. It was sponsored by DuPont Automotive Finishes, and in my opinion had a much better and cleaner looking paint job than the rainbow paint job that Jeff Gordon carried in the Cup Series. Ricky did win 2 races in this car, had some really good finishes in the Busch Series. He did move up to Cup. He did have a couple bouts with head injuries. He would score his first career win in 2001 in Cup and his last in 2003. So he did rise up after this and moved up a little bit, but didn't have the successes that everybody had anticipated. Next is Steve Grissom. This is 1993. You see the Busch Series Championship trophy behind him, and this is literally as high as Steve got. 1994, this team, Diamond Ridge Racing, owned by Gary Bechtel, would move up to the Cup Series, where Steve would usually flounder around about an 18th to a 25th place finish. Not really competitive. They only had 1 top 10 in 1994, which was the Winston 500 at Talladega. Maybe he had a couple more. That was his first top 10 finish that I remember, was the Winston 500. But he just had a mediocre rookie season at best. Then the last car of this pack is Joe Nemechek. Of course, Joe was the 1992 Busch Series champion. He would move up to the Cup Series full-time in 94, and would pretty much run full-time till he started having to start and park rides about 2004, 5, 6. Of course, his son John Hunter Nemechek races in the Cup Series today, running for Rookie of the Year for Front Row Motorsports. So we're going to move on to box number 2. And this set is from 1995 Select. It's called Select Skills. It's kind of a holographic set there you see. It has a nice picture of the car, a background photo of the car, and a nice headshot of the driver. This little Select Skills Starburst there on the bottom left. Back of the cards will have a picture of the driver and just a little bit of information. But it does take a trait of the driver or their strength and just talks about it. So Rusty Wallace, of course, is short track racing. Rusty raced in the ASA series and then moved to NASCAR in 1984. Short tracks were always Rusty's strength. Mark Martin, intensity. Of course, Mark was a fitness guru and Metallica, and I'm sorry, not Metallica, it's Matt Kenseth, rap music lover. So Mark always had a lot of energy around him, a lot of intensity, as they say here. Jeff Gordon, focus, that would be very, very good, especially at this time frame. That's a really nice picture of his Lumina at Watkins Glen. But Jeff Gordon, you know, very, very focused. He learned a lot of that focus racing sprint cars and midgets and so forth, where you have a much higher horsepower to weight ratio. Ernie Irvan, quick study. And Ernie jumped from a few teams in the early 90s, low-budget teams, to high-budget teams like Morgan McClure and later Robert Yates. And he would have to adapt his driving styles from team to team as he may change manufacturers, may change, obviously, teams and crews, and having to change lines of communication mid-season. And that happened a few times for Ernie in his career. So Ernie was always adaptable in that form. Terry Labonte, cool head. Even when he was at his most upset, Terry was still remarkably calm. So if you go back to 1999 at Bristol, in his post-race interview when Dale Earnhardt spun him on the last lap, and just watch that interview. Even though you could tell he could spit nails, Terry was remarkably calm during that one. Ricky Rudd, road racer. I think Ricky's ability on the oval tracks to have a steady line, a steady pace, made him an excellent road racer during this time. Ricky and Rusty Wallace were the two best road racers for the better part of the 90s and early part of 2000s, and generally one of these two guys would almost always win one of the road races during this time frame. So Rudd was always easy on his brakes, easy on his tires, easy on his car, and it helped him to become a really, really great road racer. Kyle Petty, team player. Kyle, of course, with that Petty lineage and just getting along with everybody, Kyle always seemed to never have issues with his crew. Of course, he drove for Petty Enterprises, the Wood Brothers, Sabco, and then later PE2. So he was always a leader in the team and would always would be around the team at the shop, at the track, you know, away from the track at the track race weekend, what have you. So Kyle was always a team player. Ken Schrader, versatility. I would have to put Ken Schrader in probably my top 10, maybe top 5 most versatile drivers, because you got to throw in people like Robbie Gordon, Tony Stewart, Scott Speed, some of these other guys that have raced, Casey Kane, that have just jumped into anything, Kyle Larson, Jeff Gordon. So he's definitely top 10 of one most versatile, but he is still one of the most active drivers as well. Even though he's 65 years old, he still races as many sprint car and midget and dirt races as he can. Morgan Shepherd, consistency. Morgan's one of those guys that will get the best out of the car. Whatever the car will give him, that's what you're going to get. But with Morgan, you didn't have a lot of ups and downs. He was very consistent with his lap times, very consistent with his finishes, and didn't tear up a lot of equipment. I think a lot of that comes back from his sportsman days in the 70s and 60s when he had to work on his own stuff. Then when he got to the Cup Series and he was driving for other people, he knew how to take care of their stuff, and he was definitely a model of consistency. Geoff Bodine, motivator. Even though Jeff can be very polarizing as a driver, listen to him on some podcasts, and of course, we all know that Jeff was very inspirational in getting the Bodine bobsled involved with the Olympics back in the early 90s or mid-90s. So I can see where Jeff would be a motivator in many different ways. He was instrumental in buying the 7 team when Alan Quickie passed away. So he does have a lot of motivator qualities. Then we have Ted Musgrave, mechanical ability. And Ted was a very mechanical driver, always always got the best out of his cars. If the cars didn't run well, it wasn't because of a lack of effort from Ted, either from behind the wheel or under the hood. He always, he is a former Truck Series champion, but he didn't win any Cup races. He has a best finish of second. I believe that was in Martinsville and Darlington of 95 or 96, right around there, because that's when Ted's peak was in the Cup Series, about that time. Michael Waltrip, I can't read yellow on yellow, growth. So this picture was from 1995. If you go back 10 years to 1985, when Michael made his Cup debut, those first handful of years, Michael was tearing up a lot of cars, but as time went on, he became more consistent. He started learning, and other drivers would give him opportunities. He would frequently drive his brother's, Darrell Waltrip's Busch Series car, and even drove Dale Earnhardt's Busch Series car a few times. So it just shows you the trust that the veterans had in him as he was gaining experience. John Andretti, Endurance. Of course, that comes from 1994, when John ran the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. Now, he did finish 9th at Indianapolis, but I think he finished about 36 at Charlotte because the engine, he had some kind of engine issue in his Chevrolet that day at Charlotte. But John did prove that the Indy-Charlotte double could be done, and therefore kind of classified him as an Ironman of sorts. Todd Bodine, technical support. Much like Musgrave, he could be fine. If he wasn't behind the wheel, he was under the hood. Todd was a very well-known fabricator in the NASCAR circles before he got behind the wheel, so he was always doing body work, sheet metal, hanging bodies, doing chassis work. Todd was a very, very technical driver, is a former two-time Truck Series champion. I know he does work with the FS1 broadcasts on the Truck Series, and I think he does occasionally work with PRN or MRN occasionally during other races, but he does have a lot of very good technical knowledge. Sterling Marlin, Super Speedway Master. You know, you look at this car, this picture of Sterling in the Kodak car, and a lot of people think 94, 95 Daytona 500 champion, all them plate wins. But if you go back to 1986 when he was driving for Haas Ellington in the Pepsi Firecracker 400 of that year, Sterling posted the fastest time in time trials, but had to start 21st because it was in second round qualifying, because his first round qualifying speed was disallowed because they found dry ice in the car, which would cool the engine, cool the fuel, and allow him to run faster. And then they actually came back on the second day with a legal car and set fast time. So he qualified a little over 203 miles an hour in the 1986 Pepsi 400. Darrell Waltrip, patience, although I've seen a few races where he didn't exhibit patience, but a lot of times, a lot of cars, especially on short tracks, would jump out to a huge lead. Darrell might be half to three-quarters of a lap down, just saving his stuff. All of a sudden, 50 laps to go. The other guys run his tires, run his brakes, car's worn out. Darrell passes him and wins the race. I believe our next to last card, Jimmy Spencer, Hard Charger. Probably one of the few guys besides Dale Earnhardt that you did not want to see in your mirror during this time, because if you didn't move out of his way, he was going to move you. Jimmy wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers on or off the track, very aggressive. Although he only netted 2 Cup Series wins at Daytona and Talladega, he is still always known for his hard-charging style and his nickname, Mr. Excitement. And our final card of this set is Harry Gant, methodical. Much like DW, you'd see Harry just kind of linger around about 10th or 12th most of the race. One by one, as the race goes on, he would just pick these cars off. And more often than not, about halfway through the race, he's leading the race and lapping the field, even though his car always had a carburetor that didn't work, or the shocks were broken, or there's always something wrong with his car, but Harry always managed to pull off a win. So this is one of my favorite insert sets of the mid-90s. Also, like that press pass set from '94 of the Prospects was a decent set. I just thought that they could have used some younger drivers in the set, because by this time most of these guys were already established or had reached their peak. But this one here, that Select Skills set, I really do like that set. So, hope you guys enjoyed the little bit of throwback here today, just looking at some more older sets and looking at some old cards and maybe some guys that you might have forgotten about. So, once again, thanks for watching, and we will be back later this evening opening up some more packs of 1989 Donners. Thanks for watching and have a great Friday.